All right, so here we go. So again, we're going to start with physical development, and just as a reminder that one of the unique aspects about being human is the being born with an underdeveloped brain. So we're going to spend quite a bit of time on early childhood and infancy for that very reason, because we want to look at this rapid growth during this period. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we need to do. So kind of want to do some introductory parts to this, and we'll go over certain brain regions and whatnot. But uh, we do use, I don't know if I mentioned this in the class, there's this myth that we only use about 10% of our brains. This myth comes from the idea that we're actually born with only 10% of our physical growth of the brain. Uh, but the thing that we should know in this class is that at any given time, there's activity running through almost every nerve that goes through our brain. Each area of the brain has its job to do in order to create our the world that we live in. So there isn't some area of the brain that we haven't accessed. That's kind of a myth that has been developed. So the brain and body are not separate. So, when we talk about the mind-body problem, we're not necessarily talking about brain processes when it comes to that problem, because the brain is a physical structure within the body, and it's the structure that is kind of the control center over all of our biological processes. And and so when we talk about the mind-body problem, we have to separate it from the brain and body and the connection the brain has with the body. So um, as the brain develops, obviously, the body is capable of expansion. One of the unique things, again, about the human brain is that in all species that we've observed this in, there is a direct association between brain size and body size. So, for example, elephants and giraffes have the biggest brains in the animal kingdom. Whales as well, especially humpback whales and blue whales have even larger brains than what we see in elephants or larger land animals. Um, what makes humans unique in this area, though, is that our brain is actually not proportionate to our body. Um, we kind of break this rule of body mass to brain size. We actually have an oversized brain compared to our body mass. And it's led some neurologists and psychologists to believe that this is the reasons why we have, that kind of, and I don't want to use the term higher thinking ability, but the ability to think abstractly and create a lot of the things that humans create, such as cities and states and religion and government and all of these things we do on kind of a conscious level. And that's what some theorists in neuroscience and psychology kind of theorize of why we have this larger brain. As far as area of the brain, it is really dependent upon the unique component of that species needs or the adaptation. So, for example, the occipital lobe, the lobe that transmits a vision or processes vision, is in the back of the head, and our occipital lobe is if we were to do a little bit of comparative thing to it, is undersized compared to, let's say, an eagle or a hawk. They have a more enlarged occipital lobe. For humans, our area that we have a lot of extra space on is our frontal cortex area. We tend to have a more enlarged frontal cortex compared to other animals. Um, um, and we see this larger frontal cortex. When we do see larger frontal cortex in other species, we tend to see that they're much like human beings in that they're social. They're social beings, meaning they can't exist without each other. They're not loners, in the world, or lone animals. As you would say, it's more like herd animals, and elephants have a large frontal cortex like we do as well. So as we know, and this I'm hoping is just kind of a review from a biology class, or I think we even talk about it a little bit in Psych 101. But the neuron is a cell that makes our nervous system and it communicates across what we call synapses. Okay. And so in the most basic sense, what we have when it comes to neurons is that we have a chemical, so release of neurotransmitter into here, and it goes to the postsynaptic dendrite, and then travels down here. So it's a chemical electral process. So if there's sufficient enough neurotransmitter, it will excite this cell, and it'll send an electrical impulse down its axon uh, to connect with another cell. Okay. And we know that that's pretty much how the brain communicates, and how that works. When we're born with approximately 100 billion nerve cells. Um, but the synapse are largely formed after birth. So the synapse is the connections these nerves have with other nerves. And as we see the infant develop language, we can see the spread of these synapses when they start developing their social aspects and start that play period that I talked about. We see an expansion of synapses then. Um, Literally, if we were to calculate it, the number of synapses we have by about the age of 6 is around 1 trillion. Um, and so the unique thing about nerve cells is all of the other cells in our body regenerate on a 4 to 7 year cycle. So and sometimes even quicker, like our skin cells, they are regenerating almost daily. In fact, when you're in an enclosed space with other people, the majority of what we breathe in is not only oxygen, but also skin cells from other people. But like our bones and the veins and the organs regenerate on about a 4 to 7 year schedule. Nerve cells are not that way. Nerve cells, you have the nerve cells you developed in your mom's womb. And once they die, they're dead. Um, now, can they create? Does that mean that functioning is lost? No, the other cells can make connections that cell that was lost during that cell. Um, but we really do age with our nervous system, and we'll see this kind of how this works out as we age. Um, so the way that a nerve cell stays healthy is it has a support cell called glial cells. And basically they kind of wash the cell, they bring the cell if it needs nutrients and those kinds of things. It really is the support person for the nerve cell because it can't regenerate itself. Okay. Myelin is this fatty layer that kind of goes over some of our cells, not all of them. And what myelin does is, one, it acts as a protectant, but it also allows for faster neurotransmission. So when we look at kind of some development in early childhood, we will see that we go from gross development, meaning being able to move our legs and our arms, to fine motor skills, where we can, grasp things with our fingers, we can hold a color crayon correctly, we can manipulate smaller objects. And this is all associated with the level of myelination that is going on in the brain. Now, the fastest period of myelination that happens is during adolescence, when our brain during puberty, uh, in a very short time, goes from uh, partially myelinated to almost fully myelinated, or what will become fully myelinated within the brain and the nervous system. And what this means literally is our brains go from 20 miles per hour to 1,000 miles per hour within a couple months. And we'll get to this when we get to puberty and adolescence, but I'll just leave it at this moment. So when a teenager says, I don't know why I did that, they probably don't, because their brain is processing at a level so much faster than what the person can consciously comprehend. So when your teenager says, they don't know why they did what they did, have some patience with them, and slow it down for them and work through the problem with them.